My name's William and this is the Wine Room at Putnam Market in Saratoga Springs, and I'm here today to answer a question that came in over Twitter, and the question is, when you have two well-received and highly rated wines of the same variety, but one is $50 or more and the other is $20 or less, what really makes up the difference? Is it just marketing? Well, over the next 4 weeks I'll attempt to answer that in the next 4 videos, and even though you might question whether or not, just because the two wines have the same grape variety and just because they're both highly rated, they are, as a matter of fact, actually comparable, we'll put to one side just for the moment. But I happen to have here two wines, both of them rated 90 by the Wine Spectator, but this one is $65 and this one is $16. One is a class growth from Bordeaux, the other a Cabernet Sauvignon from Mendoza. Let's find out what makes the difference. Hi, my name's William, this is the Wine Room at Putnam Market, Saratoga Springs. What makes one bottle of wine cost more than the other? And let's just take California as an example. If you wanted to buy an acre of prime vineyard land in Napa Valley, you'd have to pay something in the order of $350,000. What this means is that when you've harvested your grapes, and let's say you don't actually want to make wine, but you want to sell it to somebody who does make wine, you're going to put those grapes on the market at around $6,000 a ton, maybe more. Now, if you do the same thing, but you grow your grapes in the Central Valley, which of course where all of the grapes that go into the big brands that we're all familiar with, whether it's Two Buck Chuck or Barefoot or whatever it might be, if you buy that, then the cost of grapes is around $600 a ton. It costs 10 times more to grow your Cabernet Sauvignon in Napa Valley than it does the Central Valley. Hi, my name's William, this is the Wine Room, Putnam Market. We're looking at why one bottle of wine that looks pretty similar to another bottle of wine can be as much as 10 times more expensive, and we covered the cost of land. But there's a cost associated with winemaking, and the most significant costs are twofold. The first is aging the wine before you release it for sale, and the second is how you age the wine before you release it for sale. So, for example, even if you just keep it in a tank in large volumes, you've still got to finance that tank for the maturation period. Let's say it's 18 months. So that's 18 months when you can't use it. And let's say that you've got a tank which is worth $25,000, $35,000. You've got to finance that $35,000 for 18 months. So how would you do that calculation? You'd work out what the cost of interest is, what the cost of capital is to you, and you'd multiply that by 1.5 on an annualized basis. And so there's a cost associated to maturation. But if you do that not in a tank, but in a high quality French barrel, you can add to that cost of the interest the cost of the barrel itself, because the barrel will only really be effective the very first time it's used. And a very high quality barrel could cost you $2,500, French oak, less high quality, $1,500, and American oak maybe $600. But there's a cost, and all of those costs will be ratcheted up to you, the consumer, several times over by the time it gets either on sale or on a restaurant wine list. Hello. My name's William, and this is the Wine Room in Putnam Market. We're exploring why one bottle of wine costs more than another does, and we've talked about the cost of land, we've talked about the cost of winemaking, but here we're going to talk about the cost of putting it in some sort of container and bringing it to you. And probably the cheapest of all of them is to put it in a can, frankly, but we're used to it going into bottles, and so we'll put it into bottles. And here we've got one bottle here, which is probably going to cost, well, let's come to that in a minute. This bottle weighs about £2, 12 ounces, something like that, with the wine in it. This wine, full, this bottle weighs 4.4, so about 4 pounds 6 ounces, something like that. That is hugely heavier. And this bottle, which costs about $1, is dwarfed physically and economically by this, which probably costs about $6. So that's $6 just to put it in a bottle. And then here you've got a label which has been used over and over and over again for years after years. It's all in one colour. It's cheap to print. Here you've got full colour. You've got images that have to be rendered. You've got some interesting copy that someone's probably been paid to write. You've got this here which is all spot varnished, and all of that costs a load of money, and that's why this wine is high class Napa Valley Cabernet Sauvignon, $50. This is very high class Napa Valley Cabernet Sauvignon, $150. And then there's the question of how do you stop the wine falling out until you want to get it to come out, and then well, that's down to the corks that you use. And here we've got one which is plastic essentially, and probably costs around 50 cents. Here we've got one which is cork, short, comes from a reputable Bandol producer of rosé, but it's not expected to keep the wine for a very long time, so this probably cost about $1. And here you've got an absolute prime quality Pouligny-Montrachet Premier Cru cork. It's longer, it's thinner, it's more dense, probably costs about $6. And there's probably something similar to this in there. So you've got $12 at source, just added for the bottle and the cork, and that again will get ratcheted up by the time it gets to you. And I'll explain that next. Hi, I'm William. This is the wine room at Putnam Market in Saratoga Springs, and we're talking about why wine costs the way it costs. And we talked about packaging, we've talked about winemaking, we've talked about the cost of the land, but probably the biggest single cost is the cost of bringing it to you. So if you're looking at something which is relatively inexpensive, say something which is going to be retailed at $10, that's probably going to leave one of those big wineries down in the Central Valley where the vineyards have rows of vines 9 and 12 miles long. It's going to leave at something between, leave the winery something like $2 or $3 a bottle max. I mean, that's why when you think about $2 chuck going directly to Trader Joe's in California, it can be put on the shelf because there's no middlemen involved. But for everyone else there is, and it's mandated in the state of New York and many other places by law, it's mandated that the winery has to sell to a wholesaler, and this wholesaler will take the wine and will take something like 20% margin on it. So that takes the price up to around $6. And finally it'll go to a restaurant, in which case the restaurant, but if you look at the number of people that there are in a restaurant, you can see that there's much more labor involved than there is if you're retailing it. So the restaurant will look to charge you something like $20 for that bottle of wine, whereas the retailer buying it at $6 will probably sell it to you for $9. What happens at that level, of course, gets magnified quite dramatically when you've got something like this, and this wine probably leaves Chateau Montelena at around $20 a bottle. By the time the wholesaler has shipped it across the countryside and taken their reward for so doing, it's probably around $40, $45 to a retailer, and the retailer will probably sell it for around $60. So that's why that really costs a lot of money, and the Barefoot or $2 Chuck costs so much less. But it's also the reason why that were you to visit Chateau Montelena, and I absolutely recommend that you do, but were you to, they will be very, very keen indeed to sell you this wine and to ship it themselves directly, because there they will be selling a bottle of wine which otherwise would have to be sold to a distributor for $19 or $20. There they will be selling it for $60, and all the money goes directly to them. And I'm not saying that they don't deserve it, but next time you find yourself in a tasting room and you're just about to pull out the credit card and say, yes, send me 5 cases of wine, don't be surprised if you see a delighted smile on the proprietor's face.